Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about the best way to travel to Cambodia today. And I'm going to start out with a few tips, and then I'm going to give you all the information about the places we visited and what our suggestions are. We'll talk about money, all that kind of good stuff. We'll break it all down for you today. And then I'll also give you some more tips at the end as well, just kind of split all the information up. So probably grab a drink, a snack, and maybe a notebook also, so you can jot all this information down. And we had such a great time in Cambodia. It was such a big surprise for us. This last year was our first time there, and we broke it up into a couple of different countries, a couple of different cities. And one of the reasons why we did that is because the initial visa that you get is for 30 days, and you can get that online, or you can do it visa on arrival. We chose to go ahead and do it online so that we didn't have to stop and wait for it. It was just easy to just walk through because we already had everything settled, and we already had printed it out, so we could just breeze right through immigration without having to mess with the visa on arrival. So that was really good, easy thing to do as we arrived. Another thing that you need to know also is that Cambodia uses the Cambodian riel, that they have their own money, but they also use the US dollar. And I know a lot of people get really confused about this and like, should I bring USD? Should I bring Cambodian riel? And I'll talk a little bit more about it also at the end, but just kind of share a little bit here, knowing that it is better if you bring US dollars with you, but with the understanding that you're going to get Cambodian riel as change as opposed to USD. So you're going to show up with $100 USD and pay with that. And then when you get your change, it's going to be in Cambodian riel. So you think I'm paying with my 100, and you're thinking you're going to get 20s, but that's not going to be the case. You're going to save that for mostly the bigger places. And then like if you're working with locals or paying money to locals, then you would be just using the Cambodian riel would be better there. Now, ATMs are going to be a little bit tougher to find. Usually in a lot of places, you find them all over the place, like in convenience stores. And I feel like almost on every corner, it was a little bit more challenging to find ATMs that would also take our American credit card or foreign credit card, and that would also issue the money that we were looking for. So some machines only give out USD, some machines only give out Cambodian riel, and some machines give out both. So you're really looking for a machine that gives out both of them, because that way you could get a little bit of each, and that way, you won't run into any problems when you're trying to buy things. You'll have both types of currencies with you. All right, guys, next thing is that Khmer is the official language and is what is spoken by pretty much all the Cambodians. And there is some English spoken if you're looking for that in the bigger cities. You'll find that in Phnom Penh and in Siem Reap, and a couple of the others, maybe around Kampot, maybe in Sihanoukville, just a few places, and it's not going to be widespread. So definitely try to learn some Cambodian or some Khmer before you go, know a few words, and then just have that Google Translate ready to go, because you are going to use it probably a little bit more than you expected. So like I said, I'm going to share a few more tips as well at the end, but we're going to get started with our trip. We arrived into the capital city of Phnom Penh for our trip, and we decided on staying here for 2 weeks, which was a little bit different than what most people told us. Almost everybody said you only need a day or two there and then just move on. And I've always found this to not be the case. We have had this issue also in like Bangkok. A lot of people say, why do you spend so much time in Bangkok? It's actually a wonderful big city, and that's the same thing. Phnom Penh has so much to offer, so much variety as far as the cuisine, as things to do and things to see. And one of the really big things here to see and experience is that you will want to definitely take in the culture. And I think Phnom Penh is probably one of those places where it's definitely best to start there. That is a huge recommendation from me, is to start in Phnom Penh and then work out to the other places that you want to visit in Cambodia, because this is where you're really going to fully absorb what the modern Cambodian culture is like. And one of the very first places that we went to, as you recall, or if you probably know, have studied, seen, or maybe were alive during that time like me, although I was a little kid at the time, Cambodia has a very tumultuous, history, and some horrible things occurred in the country, and it has been amazing to just kind of see them rising up from those ashes. And one of the things you will definitely want to go and check out is to go to the killing fields. And there's one that's not too far from Phnom Penh, and that's Cheoung Ek. And it's going to be a very emotional and challenging time here. This is where the Khmer Rouge committed an immense amount of atrocities on their very own people. There were several fields around the country, but Cheoung Ek is kind of set up for visitors as a museum, for people to come and see and come and learn. There's a memorial stupa there where you'll see the skulls of the people who died at that particular field. And it's just a time to really take in the culture and really fully understand a lot more about the people that you will be meeting after. At one point, it's said that 1.7 to 2 million people died during that time, either through execution, through forced labor, or through starvation. About a quarter of their entire population of the whole country at that time. That is an immense amount of people. And it's just a sobering day, walking around and just learning everything from the Cheoung Ek Museum and Memorial Center. It's about $6 or it was $6 for us to enter here, and that did include the audio guide. Another thing to make sure you keep in mind is that there is a dress code, as with many places that you will visit in Cambodia. Obviously, you want to dress in a respectful manner when you go to Cheoung Ek, and they do require that women cover their shoulders as well as their knees. They did not require the men to wear pants. I did see quite a few men wearing shorts, but I did not see any women wearing shorts. And they did have, all the women had their shoulders covered either with a t-shirt, like their shoulders were covered with their shirt, or they had a shawl on of some sort to cover them up. So just be mindful when you visit Cheoung Ek. You are going to need some time to kind of take it in and to absorb it all and process it all. So I wouldn't plan a lot for that day outside of just visiting that area and just kind of taking that all in and just, taking a moment to be respectful to the people that passed in that area and from that horrible time during the Cambodian history. You're going to need a day, maybe two, to kind of decompress from that. And so we decided that we'd take a day off, and then we headed over to Silk Island. We took a ferry, and we took a local ferry from Phnom Penh across the Mekong Delta to Silk Island. And this island is a small community. It's a small island. We rode across on a car because we had a guide with us, and so he was kind of guiding us around. So we got on the ferry in the car. You can get on, on a motorbike, on a bike, walking, or in a car. So we got on in the car, rode across, and then used the car as transportation on the other side. But you can also rent bikes or motorbikes on the other side and ride from there. It's not, like I said, it's not a big island. So there's really just one main road that kind of goes around the whole island. a couple little, kind of side roads, but mostly just that one main road that goes all around the whole island. But Silk Island was really interesting because there is a huge community of people that is dedicated to raising the silkworms and the whole process of the silk, producing the silk and silk products from the island. So it's really interesting. Met a lot of the people there, got to kind of see that whole process. And in all honesty, I didn't really know a ton about silk and the silk production process. I mean, I kind of knew about the silkworms and that kind of stuff, but I hadn't ever really seen the whole process. So it was super interesting to kind of see that and see what, how that all happens. At the end, of course, you can purchase some silk items at a reduced price if you would like, because you're buying them directly from them as opposed to the products that they ship to other places, in Phnom Penh and beyond, Cambodia and beyond that. After that, we took another day off, and then we did go check out another part of taking in, again, the history of the country is going to go check out Tul Sleng, and this was, I'm sure I pronounced that wrong, but bear with me. It's the S21 prison, and it usst to be a secondary school, and the Khmer Rouge took over it, and then they used it as a place to detain people and to question them, interrogation, all that kind of stuff. And of course, you can imagine the atrocities that occurred there as well. So that, again, is going to be another heavy day when you do this. Won't be as long as the drive out to the killing field and then back and that whole process. But this one is kind of right in town. As a matter of fact, it actually wasn't that far from the hotel that we were staying in. So, this was another kind of heavy day. So just note that you don't want to plan a ton of things for this day. Just take some time to really soak in and think about what occurred and just to learn a little bit more of how that affects modern Cambodia. Today, the tickets for this one were $5, and you're pretty much free to roam. At Cheoung Ek, they had the audio guide. You could get it for an extra fee. You could pay for the audio guide here, but you didn't really need it. We were told not really to get them. We wouldn't really need them because we could just walk around, and there are plenty of signs with explanations of everything, as well as a lot of photographs. It's really documented very, very well. You really, really get a full sense of what occurred and what it was like during that time. So another really interesting place. From there, also a great place to learn more about the Cambodians and their culture was to visit the National Museum of Cambodia. It is actually the largest national museum in the country. Is this one in Phnom Penh. There is another one in Siem Reap, but this one in Phnom Penh is the largest one. It is open air, and you can take in the culture from the artistic and religious point of view, which was really, really interesting. Just kind of brought everything together, I feel like. And this one was just a short walk from the Royal Palace, which we'll talk about in just a second. But this one was $10 US, and they do have a restriction on the bags that you take in. So if you're bringing a big backpack, sometimes they'll make you either check it or like you'll pay a fee to check it or something like that. I had just my crossbody bag, which was about this big, and they didn't have a problem with that, so I brought that with me. But if you do have a backpack, they will probably make you check it. So just know that ahead of time. So from the National Museum, it was a short walk over to the Royal Palace. So went and checked that out. And it was really kind of a cool place to visit. It actually is the Royal Palace grounds, and the king happened to be home because the royal flag was flying when I was there. But obviously no king sighting for me, but it was really cool to check that all out. The grounds are immaculate. There's people working all over the place, and they just keep it so beautiful. Everything is just amazing, and it's kind of cool to see also, like, they haven't really changed it too much after it was rebuilt. Even the platform where the king would walk out and get onto the elephant is still there, which I thought was kind of interesting to see. But there was no charge to go onto the Royal Palace grounds. You can just walk around there, and they have a couple little exhibits that you can see. You can also see the Silver Pagoda, which was really cool. You can't take pictures or videos inside the Silver Pagoda, but they did have a lot of really interesting artifacts in there, as well as some mausoleums outside of that area. And they also had a really cool replica of all of Angkor Wat, which you don't see in a lot of places. It was a really cool replica of it to kind of just see it all at once, which was cool for me because I hadn't gone and seen it yet. So that was really cool to see that. And of course, no visit to a Southeast Asian country is complete without going to a market. So we did stop off at the Central Market to check that out. They had anything you could think of. They had all of it, from all the souvenirs and the trinkets and clothing and purses, all kinds of stuff. And they also had tons of jewelry when you get inside to the central part. Now this building is a really cool shape. It was completed in 1937, but it's got a really cool shape. So the center circle part, when you're inside, is kind of where all of the jewelry and stuff is being sold. It kind of reminded me a little bit of the post office in Ho Chi Minh City in Saigon. Kind of reminded me of being inside there. It was very cool, kind of an open air space, and it had like the offshoots of all the different types of stalls. But I always find my favorite is always where you see the food. It was just really cool because there were tons of locals there buying food and seafood. And Cambodia is one of those countries where they're known for their fried bugs. So there were tons of those all over the place, like stacked up tarantulas and, fried tarantulas and all kinds of stuff like that. So if you were up for it, you could try something like that as well. But there was a lot to see at the Central Market. It was really quite cool. So our time in Phnom Penh was up. We spent about a couple weeks there. So what we did is you could fly to Siem Reap from there, but we thought we didn't really want to hassle with a flight. And this next part will kind of tell you a little bit about the infrastructure that is still missing. Cambodia is still a developing country. So there is some infrastructure that isn't quite there. And one of those is with the development of roads, of highways for faster travel. Almost all the travel is done on what we in the US would consider like country roads. So even like, semi trucks and all types of delivery vehicles are all using these same roads in all these little cities along the way, which makes it a very slow process. So a trip that really should only take about 3-ish hours or so took us almost 6 hours to get there. And we only stopped twice to grab some food and to go to the restroom. So it really just tells you a lot because, you can't drive at highway speeds because you're driving through cities and towns and kids running around and vendors on the street. So just keep that in mind. I still think we made the right choice in taking a car there instead of flying, but it did give us a little bit more of a sense of what the country was like, to see that kind of middle part there of the country as we headed to Siem Reap. We also did see a ton of factories for a lot of the companies that ships their products to the US. We saw some of the companies that, produce the products for like Nordstrom and places like that. So let's talk about Siem Reap. Pulling into Siem Reap, we could tell right away it was a different type of city. Phnom Penh, it's a big city, hustle and bustle, lots of traffic, all kinds of stuff going on. Action, it feels like, all the time. However, pulling into Siem Reap, we could see it was a much slower pace, much more chill vibe, which we really liked. And I think we were ready for that after a couple of weeks in the big city. Even though we're big city kids, we love the big city. It was kind of nice to pull into Siem Reap and just kind of say, this is nice. There wasn't a ton of traffic, even though we pulled in there at what we would consider a rush hour time. it was not bad at all. So we were very excited to get to Siem Reap, check into our hotel, get settled in, and take care of business, because the main reason why we, and I think most people who come to Cambodia, go to Cambodia, is to go to see Angkor Wat. And this place just did not disappoint. Now, Angkor Wat is actually the main temple, which probably is what you see the silhouette pictures of all the time, but there's tons and tons of other temples all around. You could probably spend a month there and not see everything. But one of the things about Angkor Wat is we had read in a lot of places that it is imperative that you get a good tour guide to take you around to these different places. And we did our research. We found our guide through With Locals. It's an app, With Locals. Found him through there and communicated with him, and he sounded amazing. He's a photographer, which was great for us. My husband's a professional photographer, so we knew that this guide was going to show us Angkor Wat from a photographer's point of view, which was perfect. Plus, he was able to snap a few photos of us too while we were doing the tour as well. But he was absolutely amazing, and I really could see how it could make a huge difference. Look, you can go to Angkor Wat on your own. You don't have to get a guide. Just pay your entrance fee and show up and just go to see the temples. However, if you want the history, if you want the information, if you want to know more about like local use and things like that, then you definitely want to have a guide. We definitely wanted to have a guide because we wanted that aspect of it. Plus, it is better to have somebody to move you from temple to temple. And our guide also provided us with cold washcloths every time we got back from a temple, with cold bottled water. It was fantastic. And let me tell you, when you're there in Cambodia, it is really toasty. It's known for its high temperatures, and it was really warm the day that we went. We chose to do sunset. So that means we left later in the day. So we were there basically in the heat of the day, but it was amazing because we had the bottled water and we had those cold washcloths, which really paid off when we would get back. It felt so nice to wipe ourselves down with those cold washcloths, put them around our neck, and it felt really good. So that was good. I'll actually put our guide's info down in the description. His name was Un, O-U-N. And he just did such an amazing job. He clearly had a passion for teaching people also about this whole area, about Angkor Wat. So it was really nice to get to see it with somebody like that. The other very cool thing, which we weren't expecting, is that the other thing about Angkor Wat is that it's full of people. It's the main reason why people come to Cambodia is to go to Angkor Wat. So tons of buses and stuff like that shuffling around with loads of people. However, in the evening, so Angkor Wat actually closes at 6 p.m. In the evening, if you go, once all the buses pull out of there around 4 o'clock, they're pretty much all done with their tours. They pull out of there. You got the park, just you and the locals. It was such a cool experience sitting around, and we got pictures of Angkor Wat itself with nobody around. Didn't have to edit anybody out because there was nobody there. Once it closes, then the sun sets and that's it. Everybody's gone. So it was kind of cool to be able to have that experience with the locals right there in Angkor Wat. Now, before we arrived, we did purchase, our guide suggested that we purchase our tickets ahead of time. There's a few different options, just depends on how much you're planning on going. I would suggest going more than one day. So a one-day ticket is $37 per person for the day, and you have to buy it for a specific day and you have to use it on that day. So if you don't end up going that day, then you lose that and you have to buy another one. They do have an app called the Angkor Pass that is official through the government, and you can buy it in there. That's how I did it. I just downloaded the app, bought the tickets in there, and then whenever I had to show them, I could easily pull up the app and then they would scan it and it was no problem. You could also buy a 3-day pass. The 3-day pass is good for 1 week, so you don't have to go 3 days in a row. You could split it up during the week, and that one is $62. They have a 7-day pass that's good for 1 month. So if you're going to be there for a whole month, or you retire there and you want to go there often, you can just get that 1 month or that 7-day pass. You can go 7 times in 1 month, and that one is $72. So really good pricing for seeing something like this. You can see that they obviously are using the money to upkeep the buildings and to keep the structures in a way that, you know, nobody's going to get hurt and buildings aren't going to collapse when somebody's standing next to it, things like that. So it is UNESCO World Heritage, obviously. So that's that's good to make sure you get your ticket ahead of time. Then you don't have to bother with going to the ticket office, because it's not like a national park where you start at one point. There's tons of ways in. So depending on which way you're going in, the ticket office could be a little ways away from where you're trying to go. So just keep that in mind. Make sure that, ladies, again, you're visiting temples. These are temples. You got to keep those shoulders covered. And for this one, men and women, cover the knees. So wear some pants, long pants, so that you can have those knees covered, and then ladies covering your shoulders. And they will check that when they scan your tickets. So make sure that you have that. Also, as I said earlier, it's really hot. Wear your sunscreen and bring some with you. Because you're probably going to have to reapply some after you wipe it off with those nice cold towels. And be sure to stay hydrated as well. You are going to see some monkeys out and about, especially at like Bayon Temple. That's the one place I think that's the only place where we saw monkeys just kind of hanging about. They weren't anywhere near us, but they were definitely hanging around. Just, you know, kind of keep to yourself. Don't try to pet them. Don't try to feed them. Don't try to interact with them, because that's just going to make them aggressive for down the road. There's just so many other things too that you can do in Siem Reap. We chose to really just enjoy the local areas, going to Pub Street, going to the market there, and just enjoying some of the local restaurants and being able to walk in and around town. There's a lot of other things you can do, to the floating village, to you know, the rats that they train to find the mines. Just a lot of things that you can do. There's also some day trips you can do from there as well. But as I said, we chose to spend the bulk of our time enjoying Angkor Wat, our hotel property, and also the city itself, which was really quite nice. We did actually end up adding Siem Reap to our list of places that we're going to come back to and spend more time in, because we just enjoyed it so much. It's really an up and coming place, and I did a video about why retirees are flocking to Cambodia. I think a lot of tourists are also flocking to Cambodia. Travelers, slow travelers, going and checking it out, and just learning more about it, because it really does have a lot to offer. As I mentioned earlier, you get a 30-day visa, but you can easily extend that to stay a little bit longer as well if you want to. So that is kind of nice. So let's talk about a few more tips before I leave you here. So as I mentioned, if you're paying in US dollar, you are likely going to get riel as change. Now, the problem here is that they don't have any coins. So some of the riel is worth like almost nothing. So you end up with all of these bills. We still have them. You end up with all of these bills that are worth almost nothing, and you can't exchange them anywhere. So just keep track of it. The other thing is, if by any chance someone gives you change in USD, make sure that the bills are in good condition, because other people will not accept them. They are very, very, very fussy about this. They have to be in good condition or they will not be accepted. So if someone tries to give you change with, you know, a ripped dollar bill or a $20 bill that has writing on it or something, do not accept those, because you will not be able to use those someplace else. Speaking of money, ATMs, as I mentioned earlier, are a little bit tougher to find. So be on the lookout for like the best places that we found were like, look for actual bank buildings, because they usually have the ATMs right outside. And then a couple of the hotels did have an ATM outside nearby. So those are a couple places to be looking for ATMs. Tuk-tuks are easy. It's the best, one of the best ways to get around the city rather than messing around with a car. The tuk-tuks can, you know, kind of glide in and out and move around a little bit more. They have a little bit more agility than a car. But one thing to keep in mind, you don't want to get scammed. So only get in a tuk-tuk that you have ordered using Grab app or the Passkey app. You'll actually see it printed on a lot of the tuk-tuks. You'll see it says Passkey, but they'll also be for Grab as well, G-R-A-B, Grab app. Use those two to book your tuk-tuks. Do not get in a tuk-tuk from a driver who's just sitting on the side and offers you a ride. That has got some potential for, you know, being scammed. So best thing to do, just book them through the app. And in all honesty, they're usually very close by and they come really quickly. In Siem Reap, they would literally be there in less than a minute. Almost every single time they were there in a minute or less. So just know that you can trust the drivers, the tuk-tuk drivers in the Passkey and the Grab app. And then the last thing to keep in mind and to keep you from being getting sick is the tap water. Do not drink the tap water at all. Only drink bottled water. It's really inexpensive, not a big deal. And if you're staying in a hotel, the hotel will provide you with the drinking water. But if you drink a lot like we do, we would buy a couple extra bigger bottles and have them in the room with us as well. With the tuk-tuks, one of the things people always ask about safety in places, especially someplace like Cambodia. I know it kind of has a reputation of sorts for some reason, which is unwarranted, to be honest. But someplace like Phnom Penh, the only issue here, I think mostly, it's not big crimes occurring, it's petty theft type things or just snatching. So if you're riding in a tuk-tuk and you have your phone in your hand and you're filming out the window or out the door because they're open, you could have that phone snatched out of your hand. So like I would have my camera in my hand while I was filming and we were riding around, but I kept it close to my body as opposed to extending my arm out through the door, because what they're doing is they're watching through that little open slot, usually behind you, and they can see when you're doing it and they just ride up, grab it, and it is gone. And it is gone for good. So make sure that you pay attention to that. Didn't really see a need to be worried about that in Siem Reap, but I just kept doing it out of the habit that I gained in Phnom Penh from riding in the tuk-tuks there. But other than that, felt pretty safe for the most part. We walked around a lot. We either walked or used the tuk-tuks. We only used cars to and from airports. So really didn't feel like there was a lot of danger going on there. Like I said before, the people were amazing. So nice. That Khmer smile really paid off and really warmed our hearts. So it was really a wonderful experience. And like I said earlier, we're adding it to the list of our rotation of places that we'll continue to visit often, especially because it's right next to some place that we go every single year, and that is Thailand. And the cultures are somewhat similar. So it is easy to hop over to Cambodia and hang out there for a little bit. So hopefully, guys, I hope that this was helpful, that you learned something new, or maybe you have some questions. If you do, leave those down below in the comment section. Guys, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more like this. Give me a like if you enjoyed the video and learned something, and I will see you next time.